If your small business received a COVID EIDL from the U.S. Small Business Administration during the pandemic, this video is for you. How are you today? I'm Trevor, your EIDL expert, and today is Idle Chatter, Tuesdays with Trevor. We started something new in April, literally on April Fool's Day, and what we're trying to do is on the first Tuesday of every month, I come on here and ramble on about stuff that y'all need to know about the COVID EIDL program, developments with the SBA administration as it's happening in real time, our experiences working with clients on consulting calls and clients that we're still finishing up with from the end of last year, so that we can give you advice based upon our rolling up the sleeves and our real-time knowledge and experience with the Small Business Administration. Before I launch into my rants and raves for today, if you could be so kind as to subscribe to the channel. More than 70% of the folks who watch our videos are not subscribed. So if you could do that and hit the little bell for notifications so you get an alert whenever we launch a new video. And of course, hit that thumbs up down there to tell YouTube that you like the video, and YouTube will take our videos and share them with other small business owners just like you who may have questions, concerns, or worries about the COVID EIDL program. Launching into Tuesdays with Trevor Idle Chatter. I chattered a lot in the month of April. Holy cow. You know, we opened our calendar for the 1-hour paid consulting calls for the month of April, and we were very clear that it was for a limited time just for the month of April. And holy cow, like the calendar blew up with folks asking for help. We originally had the idea to open the calendar because so many of you reach out to us every day here on YouTube and also through our website asking for help, questions, concerns, anxieties, and worries about doing the right thing with the federal government program administered by the SBA. We opened the calendar, and as I said, it was a busy month, and I had a lot of idle chatter. Linda Ray, see what I did there? Yeah, okay. Well, we've decided to continue for the moment, at least for the month of May. We have continued to keep the calendar open. Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, 11 a.m. Eastern to 10 p.m. Eastern. We made the calendar available late into the evening here in Connecticut because we want you folks on the West Coast to be able to book a call in the evening after you've come home from a long day slogging through the trenches in your small business. If you'd like to book a call, there is a link in the description so you can access our calendar. On today's Idle Chatter, I'm going to go through a couple of YouTube comments as part of our 𝗘𝗜𝗟𝗏 series of YouTube videos where I discuss basics about the COVID loan program or respond to comments here on the YouTube channel. We came up with this idea because we can't answer all the comments down below in the comments. There's too much nuance and subtlety with the questions that you folks present. And so what I do is I cherry pick some of those comments. I've got some of them here today, and I'm going to answer those in just a moment. As an addendum to the 1-hour phone call consulting, we realized there are those of you in the audience who really don't like talking on the phone. And we have created an email consulting product for you. You can find information about it by clicking on the link in the description. It's a product where we have a very detailed intake form that you have to fill out, and I will then review that and respond to you with a written response with our expert advice on how to manage the question or problem or issue that you have with the COVID loan program. First comment I have for today is from Amanda Lazek, 4681. Well, hello, Amanda, and thank you for commenting on our videos. Thank you for supporting our channel. Amanda states, I'm pretty sure you have to pay off the interest balance before anything goes to principal. So wouldn't people want to pay a lump sum to get rid of their interest so that they can then start making principal payments? This is a fantastic statement, a fantastic observation in response to the video we recently did called Reamortize Your EIDL Payment and a Prepayment How-To Guide. What I love about this is that it approaches this loan in the way that many small business owners approach this debt, that they want to get rid of it. They want to toss it off their shoulders, get rid of it. Many of you never had business debt before the pandemic, or if you did, you had a different experience because you applied for that debt through a bank and you had the advantage of a loan officer kind of guiding you through the process. Unless you were one of our clients or working with an accountant or a CPA or an attorney who knew the program the way we do, and that person could advise you, most of you did it on your own. You DIY'd your COVID loan application. And sadly, some of you with really bad advice from Reddit, but that's a whole other video I'll do some other time. But you did this on your own. And so this combination of inexperience with taking on debt and understanding loan terms, combined with the idea that people don't want to owe money, I think infuses itself into this spicy recipe from Amanda. I'm pretty sure you have to pay off the interest balance before anything goes to principal. That is correct. The interest began accruing on your loan on the day that you signed the loan agreement, right? And because that interest was running, unless you began making payments immediately, in other words, by example, if you got the loan in July of 2020 and you started making payments in August of 2020, if you took advantage of the deferment period, which was originally, 6 months, 12 months, then 24, then 30 months, if you took advantage of the deferment periods, all of that interest kept accruing, kept building up. That meant when you set up your account, either with pay.gov, when that was the payment facility, or with the My SBA portal, when you started making payments, your payments were applied initially to interest. In fact, in the EIDL loan agreement, or the LAA as we call it, it clearly states that all payments will be applied to interest before principal if there is a deferment period that was taken advantage of. And yes, you do have to pay that off. But the next part of Amanda's comment, so wouldn't people want to pay a lump sum to get rid of their interest so that they can then start making principal payments? You would think, right? But here's the thing. Do you really want to pony up a huge portion of cash to the SBA on what is an otherwise low-cost loan? Our longstanding advice to our viewers here on YouTube and to our clients is, if you find yourself in a position where you've got some extra cash every month, before you consider paying off your SBA COVID loan, maybe you should apply that cash to build a reserve account. In my opinion, many of you got the COVID loan in the first place because you either didn't have any cash reserves for a rainy day, or if you did, it wasn't enough to last through the period of the pandemic. Therefore, number one, take additional cash and put it off to a side to a special bank account. Save up that money for a rainy day, for an emergency, for a situation where revenues dip of whatever reason, and you need to be able to make your operating expenses and not struggle with your business. Ideally, you should set a target of 6 months worth of basic expenses for your business operating costs. And then once you've got 6 months, 12 months, ultimately, our advice is 18 to 24 months of cash reserves for your business. But at the minimum, you should have 6 months. Therefore, before you take extra money and plow it into paying what is basically a low-cost loan, which, please confirm this with your tax professional or your CPA, you might find the interest on that loan is tax deductible against revenue on your tax return, right? So it kind of becomes free money. I mean, do the math. It's a very low-cost loan, and you get to write off the interest every year. Our second piece of advice, if you have extra cash and you've got at least 6 months of cash reserves, but preferably longer, pay off other debt that you've got that you can be sure costs you more every month than the SBA loan. The SBA loan for a business is 3.75% interest. For a nonprofit organization, it was 2.75%. That is very low cost money. If you've got any other kind of debt, business credit cards. As part of my 1-hour consulting calls, I have a basic intake questions that I ask folks when we start the call. One of those questions is, do you have, apart from the COVID loan, any other business debt? I would say about 7 out of 10 times the business owner tells me, no, I don't have any other loans. Oh, but I have business credit cards. I have an American Express business card. I have a Visa business card. I have this business card. Well, honey, when's the last time you looked at the APR on those accounts? Because you can be sure that costs you, that credit card debt costs you a lot more money on an annualized basis than the COVID loan does. And therefore, when Amanda says, wouldn't people want to pay a lump sum to get rid of their interest? I would say, stop. In the name of love. Okay, sorry. It's late in the day when I'm recording this, and I kind of want to just chill out. Stop and consider, do I have reserves for my business in case of an emergency, in case of a downturn in revenue? And if I have that, do I have other debt that is more expensive that I can pay off? One other suggestion I've got for you if you have extra money. This comes from a situation with a client we were assisting with financing right before the pandemic. And in reviewing their financials, I discovered that they had a lot of business, a lot of corporate clients. It was a transportation company, a lot of airlines and large corporations that would use their vehicles for transportation to and from airports and hotels, right? And in looking at the financial statements, I discovered that they were paying an insane amount of money every month in credit card transaction fees. I mean, it was really impacting their bottom line, and that's what was making it very difficult to get them approved for loan financing, because their bottom line net revenue was severely impacted by these high-cost transactions. I asked, do you have an accounts receivable department, an accounts receivable person? Why don't you bill these corporate clients on an invoice with, say, net terms of net 15, net 30, net 45 for the really good clients? Negotiate with the corporate clients to set up a proper APAR transactional system and save yourself a huge pile of money with these credit card transaction fees. The response, sadly, from that business owner was, well, you know, Trevor, with the credit cards, we get paid right away, and that really helps us in our week-to-week operations. To which I responded, yes, I get it, but if you cut off the credit cards and convert it to an accounts receivable system where you send an invoice to your corporate client and you expect them to pay that invoice in 15 or 30 or 45 days, while you may have some temporary pain in the first couple of weeks, 4, 5, 6 weeks, because you don't have that credit card money coming in every day, every week, ultimately, you will have a more strident cash flow situation because you won't be throwing money, like we say in Spanish, in la basura, throwing money in the garbage, because that's what they were doing. But he wouldn't hear of it. Therefore, my third piece of advice to you, and in response to Amanda's comment, if you have enough money to make a lump sum payment to your COVID EIDL, why don't you consider hiring or training internally someone on your team to create and manage an accounts receivable system if your business operates that way. The lovely thing about accounts receivable systems is that saves you those transaction fees and credit cards mightily. I mean, that's a lot of money that previous client was throwing out the window or in the garbage, right? But also creates a more professional relationship with your clients. So much so that you can even offer the really loyal clients, you can create a loyalty program. If you start out with a receivables program where an invoice is net, let's say net 15 days, right? Net 15 means they've got to pay the invoice in full in 15 days. But they do that and they're paying the bills every month, and either they run into a challenge and they call you and say, you know, we're having a problem, cash flow issue. Because they're a loyal customer, you have the grace to say to them, got you back, don't worry about it. We'll extend this invoice for another 15 days. We'll make it net 30. Or how much time do you need? See, that deepens your relationship with your clients, with your customers. And that relationship, by the way, anytime you have an interaction with someone, I call that an opportunity to sell them more stuff, right? And if you have that kind of relationship, you have an opportunity to take it up to another level. Maybe they're buying, you know, X amount of dollars a month worth of product or services, but they ask for this special favor. And then you have an opportunity on that conversation to say to them, by the way, we just launched this new service or this new product. Is that something you'd be interested in? Because, we'll give you some good grace on this receivables, but we'd really like you to consider, purchasing this new product and service, and you increase sales. Opportunities instead of paying down your COVID loan. Again, I want to thank Amanda for this fantastic comment. Got a lot of mileage out of it, if you have noticed. And once again, just want to remind you, if you are not already subscribed, please subscribe to our channel and please hit the thumbs up to tell YouTube that this video has value for you, because then YouTube will share our videos with more small business owners who have COVID EIDLs just like you, and get the word out there and advise more folks and help them avoid all kinds of problems with the Small Business Administration that typically makes things more complicated than they need to be. If you'd like to book a 1-hour paid consultation call with me, we have continued our calendar for the month of May. Calendar is open Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday from 11 a.m. Eastern to 10 p.m. Eastern to allow folks on the West Coast to call later in the day. And you can find a link in the description below so that you can book a 1-hour call with me. Next comment from YouTube is from 𝗷𝗂𝘁𝗶𝘂𝗋𝗡. We got a lot of 88s going on today. This person says, the lifeline we needed to survive from SBA has turned into a noose around our neck. Ooh, sorry to hear that. That's bad. Next sentence, this is so bad. Business has not bounced back yet. We would have been best served to just shut down and start another profession. Now locked into a loan, signed under fear and duress. Nothing I can do but say we don't have the funds to pay the loan and all related operation expenses, with only about 5% of the business we have now versus pre-COVID and SBA EIDL. Had I only known that the whole business world would be upside down. We see lots of comments like this, and on the 1-hour consultation calls, which is why we opened it up for the month of April and why we're extending the calendar into the month of May, we are talking to a lot of business owners. A lot of you are facing serious difficulties, both in revenue for your business and in your ability to repay the COVID loan. And SBA, as you know, if you watched our videos, has not made it easy for you to manage that repayment. They canceled the Hardship Accommodation program, which gave you temporary relief for 6-month periods up to 2.5 years combined. They canceled that on March 19th. Now they have something called short-term payment assistance. And while we are getting some feedback from folks that they are getting approved, I think it matters on who you get on the other end of the email at SBA to work on your file. And based upon Ms. Loeffler's recent memorandum to the staff at SBA, it seems they are much less forgiving about your difficulties, as in this YouTube comment. What do you do? If you owe taxes to the IRS, you can call the IRS. You'll wait on hold for a bit. Then you get an IRS representative on the phone. You can say, I owe taxes. I'd like to work out a payment plan. And you know what the IRS says? Sure, let's work out a payment plan. And you talk to the rep on the phone and you work out a number and they send you a written confirmation in the mail and they say, okay, you've agreed. Here's your payment plan. This is how much every month you're going to pay. And they remind you that penalties and interest may still accrue, but at least the IRS is willing to work with you so you can pay off that tax, so you can get it off of your mind, that you can feel at least like you're doing something. The SBA has no such provision. There is no such provision at the SBA except this new short-term payment assistance program, which is only 6 months, and it's a 50% reduction. There's no negotiating and no real-world conversation between the SBA and you, the small business owner, to ask you, well, where are you? What is the situation? And what kind of time do you need to recover and get back into place so you can make full payments? Or in the event that you cannot pay the loan at all, maybe you say to the SBA, I can sell the forklifts, I can sell the factory shelving, I can sell the computers, and this is approximately how much I would get, but it doesn't pay the whole loan. Can we work out a short settlement, or what's called offer in compromise? SBA does not permit offer and compromise for the COVID EIDL program. So where do you go? A lot of the calls I'm getting on our 1-hour consultation calls are folks telling me they're filing bankruptcy. And they basically are asking me for advice in terms of the paperwork, books and records information, how to put that together so they're in compliance with the SBA and also for the bankruptcy court. Because what we've learned from bankruptcy attorneys here on YouTube is that the bankruptcy court will ask you for books and records on how you spent the COVID money, essentially to make sure that there's no money left over that can be applied to the loan balance and then the remainder to start a bankruptcy. But you have to be compliant with the SBA at the same time, especially if you're closing the business. There are a number of things, moving parts here that come into place. And a lot of the calls I'm having recently are folks talking to me about failing businesses, comments like this one, and how do I shut the business down? How do I find an attorney? What is involved with the bankruptcy? We are not attorneys. This is not legal advice. So we cannot advise you on the procedures of bankruptcy. You have to consult with a bankruptcy attorney. But if you want to book a 1-hour call with me to discuss what your options are, you can click on the link in the description for a 1-hour call open for the month of May. You would be surprised sometimes in the fact finding I do on these calls, I discovered that there may actually be a way to save the business. I spoke with a graphic designer the other day who started the conversation by saying, look, I went through some serious business and medical issues. This designer has a lot of corporate clients. And because of AI and corporate budgets shrinking, some of his work, was reduced. And so his revenue was reduced. And sadly, at the same time, he went through a serious personal medical issue, which he's now recovered from. And on the call, he started the call by talking about, I want to discuss with you about closing the business and assets and bankruptcy. And we touched on that. But I discovered in my conversation with him that he really didn't want to give up the business. And working for someone else was not an option. This was not something he wanted to do. As it turned out, we kind of flipped the phone call around, and the consulting advice I gave him was more about the pivot. What things can you do to basically improve the business? Go out there and find more customers. Business owners typically, when things get difficult, it's all about cutting expenses. But there's only so much fat you can cut out of the expense column on your profit and loss statement, right? When it all comes down to it, revenue drives the income, revenue drives the ability to pay expenses, revenue drives your profitability. So the only way to get revenue is to find more customers, create more products or services that either are more profitable or there are more variety of products and services you offer to go out there and sell more. And that was one of the elements of our conversation. In fact, I even created a basic script for him to call some of his very loyal clients. He told me that many of the folks that do business with him really love him. They love the quality of his work. And personally, there's a personal engagement there, a personal relationship. I said to him, this comes from my experience as a mortgage banker, where I worked every single day, was out there looking for a referral source or a new loan. So every day I had to go out there and find a new job, essentially, because I worked on 100% commission. And so I gave him some advice, which was essentially like a script. I said, pick up the phone and call your loyal contacts, folks who really love you, and ask them if they can introduce you to someone else who might need your services. And I went one step further. I said, if you use the Tom Hopkins technique, this is a book I bought when I first started my mortgage career in 1989, How to Master the Art of Selling. In here is a technique where while you're on the phone with that very loyal, friendly customer, and you say to them, is there someone you know who you can introduce me to? Looking to get new customers and build my business back up. And that person says, yes, in fact, I just had lunch with someone the other day. I'd love to introduce you to her. I told this person on the consulting call, I said, what you do next is you say to that person, would you mind getting her on the phone right now? Do a conference call and introduce me. I mean, that is bold. That is brash. But if you need to make money, these are the kinds of things you have to do. And there's nothing impolite or mean, or there's nothing wrong about asking for a referral. There's an old phrase in the sales business, always ask for the order. And you've heard me here on the channel saying to you, the Trevor's golden rule is always apply, right? People always try to figure out, will I be approved for the loan? Will I be approved for this? You won't know until you apply. Well, the same that comes out of this concept of always ask for the order. This business owner said to me that, and I quote, well, Trevor, I'm a millennial, and I'm actually kind of not really comfortable talking to people on the phone. I said, well, I'm a boomer. I love talking on the phone. And as a result, by the way, of that conversation, Linda Ray and I had a conversation afterwards, and we decided that we would create a new product for folks like that. Maybe not everybody wants to talk to me on a 1-hour consultation call. And we now have a new product, which is email consulting. If you wish to interact with me for expert advice just by email, you find a link in the description below, and we'll send you an intake form, very detailed about information I need to help understand your business and your problem or your issue or your challenge. And then we'll come back to you with a written summary statement of my advice and recommended strategies. If you'd like to engage with that, click on the link in the description. And again, we're always very saddened to hear folks like 𝗓𝒂𝘅 here who is having such difficulty. And as you may have seen in some of our previous videos, it's possible in a situation like this, if this cannot be salvaged, if revenue can't be generated and there's nothing to be done to save the business, maybe contacting an attorney to discuss a bankruptcy is the only option that is remaining, because the SBA does not provide for other types of remediation, either to settle the debt for less than you owe or to, except for the new short-term payment assistance. Someone else commented that they would like to see realistically 12 to 24 months of reduced payments while they, and that's not an unreasonable request. As I said earlier, the IRS will put you on a payment plan if you owe back taxes. Why can't the SBA offer something similarly? Linda Ray and I are very saddened to hear situations like this, and we hope things work out better for you, and we hope that today's video has been helpful. That's done for YouTube comments. Lynn? An accountant booked a recent 1-hour consultation call with me. Hi, Marie. She's out in California and has been in business as a tax accountant for 41 years and contacted us with a request for general information about the COVID EIDL program so that she can advise her many hundreds of clients who have COVID loans. She assisted them to get approved for the loans during the pandemic, and also some unique questions about her business as well. And basically, I answered some of the general questions for advice she could give to different scenarios she presented. But when it all was said and done, I said to her, the COVID EIDL resource hub that we have for sale is your compendium, your instruction manual, your go-to guide. And so she's purchasing that in a way to assist her customers. And if you know a CPA or an accountant or an attorney who could use our EIDL resource hub, I mean, we believe that you need it, but some folks don't want to spend that kind of money. If you know an accountant or attorney or CPA who needs it, please send this video to them, and they can click on the link in the description and purchase their guide so they can better advise folks like you about the responsibilities, restrictions, and requirements of the COVID loan. We hear from people all the time the bad, incorrect advice they get from accountants and attorneys about the COVID loan program. A woman recently reached out to us saying that a bankruptcy attorney told her the loan cannot be discharged in bankruptcy and that she was opening a Pandora's box with the federal government, which is completely wrong. If that attorney had our COVID guide, maybe they would have given better advice to that client. We see advice that people get from their accountants about the COVID loan. In fact, this past week, I did a phone call with a business owner in Florida who is facing some challenges due to a theft of assets by a former employee, due to a medical situation, and a general downturn in business. That business owner had on the phone with us for the 1-hour call his attorney. They wanted to know, how do we prepare for a bankruptcy with the SBA? What documents, what books and records, what should we expect? And based upon the knowledge that I've gained from other attorneys here on YouTube who practice bankruptcy law with the COVID EIDL program and our own knowledge of the SBA requirements, I was able to give them some advice. If you know a CPA or an attorney or an accountant who could use that kind of expert advice. The EIDL Resource Hub has our guidebook, which is a downloadable PDF where we have everything you need to know, including how to create a third-party authorization if you're an outside party like an accountant and you need to speak to the SBA on behalf of your client, how to request reamortization if you make a 10% or more prepayment towards the loan. You can ask the SBA to lower your payments based upon the new lower loan balance, or submitting financial statements, change of ownership, subordination, sale of assets, lien release after you pay off the loan, getting a payoff letter, U.S. Treasury collection accounts, how does it affect your credit, how to speak to an SBA agent. We not only teach you how to do that in the guide, but there are scripts, there are email templates you can use, there are SBA forms you can refer to before you interact with the SBA so you know what to expect, because sometimes the SBA sends you the form and the loan specialist expects you to have it filled out and signed in a couple of hours. We've seen that recently. And one SBA loan specialist recently gave a client of ours 5 hours to respond to an email. Client didn't see the email till the next morning because, some people are busy out there working. They don't check emails every 10 minutes like I do. All of this is included in the EIDL Resource Hub. If you'd like to purchase your copy, click on the link in the description. I wanted to finish up today with a note about compliance. Compliance is an issue that is, as I compared it on the phone with someone the other night, hey, Captain, compliance is a lot like a stop sign, right? You're driving your car and there's a stop sign. You see the stop sign. If you're like here in our little rural town here in northwestern Connecticut, the stop sign down the street here, it's a 4-way stop, but it's surrounded by open fields because this used to be all farmland. And there's 2 houses on one side and open fields on the other side. So it's very easy to see if there's a state trooper set up where you could get busted for rolling the stop sign, right? And when Linda Ray and I go out for walks, we see folks rolling that stop sign all the time. And basically, the SBA's compliance requirements are a lot like a stop sign, except you never know if and when the trooper is going to catch you for rolling that stop sign. In other words, everything you do with your business in some way or another must be in compliance with the terms of the loan agreement that you signed when you got the loan 5 years ago. If you change ownership, if you bring in investors, equity investors, if you borrow money from a bank, if you want to sell assets, change address, change order, all this stuff, you have to be in compliance with the terms of the loan agreement, including submitting financial statements every year. Did you know that? You're required to submit financial statements every year. It's in the loan agreement. Have you been doing that? Because if you have not been doing that, you know what you've been doing? You've been rolling through that stop sign. You've been out of compliance. And that means, potentially, should the SBA do what's called a post-funding compliance review, that is what they call it, they might find you in fault. Do you want to leave it a door open for a federal agent to slide in there and say to you, you're not in compliance and we're going to consider you in default, which, by the way, it states in the loan agreement, if you're not in compliance, you're considered in default. Default is not just for non-payment of the loan. No. Default also means you're not in compliance with the terms of the loan. Sounds like they're complicated. They're less complicated than worrisome, I think. We have addressed all of those compliance issues in the EIDL Resource Hub. If you'd like to purchase it, there's a link in the description. You can purchase it. But I want to just use this phrase presented by the captain on a phone call the other night. Pattern of compliance, which means, in analogous terms, you pull up to the stop sign and you count to 3. Or as my 16-year-old great niece recently told me, she was taught when you get to the stop sign, you say STOP, and then you proceed through the stop sign. That's a full stop. When I learned to drive in New York years ago, we were taught that when you get to a stop sign, you wait till the back of the car settles down, and that's a full stop. Either way, when you demonstrate a pattern of compliance with the EIDL loan agreement, you're coming to a full stop at the stop sign. Thanks for tuning in today for Idle Chatter Tuesdays with Trevor, the first Tuesday of the month. We're going to try this again in June. We'll see how it goes, where I ramble on, rant and rave about different concepts, different ideas and consequences and knowledge that you need to have about the SBA's COVID EIDL. I'd like to thank you again for subscribing to our channel. If you are not already subscribed, please do so. More than 70% of the folks who watch our videos are not subscribed. Please subscribe. If you'd like to book a 1-hour call with me, there's a link in the description below. We've got the calendar open still for the month of May, at least, for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And you can have a pay 1-hour consultation and pick my brains about compliance or any other issues you've got with the SBA COVID EIDL program. And for all of those of you who have been loyal viewers for a long time, Linda Ray and I truly, truly appreciate you. We thank you. And we value you because we know that you value the advice and expertise that we share with you here on our channel. Stay tuned because a couple of videos that are coming up soon. There's one about a terrible update about PPP forgiveness from the SBA's Office of Inspector General. I'm going to do a couple of videos called horror show videos where I'll share with you some real nightmare stories that we've learned recently on our consulting calls and from some of our clients last year. And Linda Ray is coming back. It's on the way. I'm Trevor, the EIDL expert. Thanks for tuning in today.